As the days keep growing colder and we dive into the holiday season, there are a couple things I like to do to stay warm. Sit next to the fireplace, drink a hot chocolate, but more than anything else, I like to bite into a fresh, steaming hot take right out of the oven. Hello everyone, and welcome back into the Hot Takery here on Penn State Sports Night. I'm your head chef and baking extraordinaire, Nolan Collery, and joining me tonight are two analysts who are seeking refuge from the cold winter nights by cozying up in the Takery. Logan bourandas and Justin Ciavolella. These two are going to take a bite out of my piping hot holiday takes and decide if they're going to put me on the nice list or if they'd rather chew on a lump of coal. So guys, let's get it started. If there's something I like in football, it's a good mano-y-mano rivalry, man versus man. And this year, we had a great one at the start. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes to see who was going to be our QB1. During the beginning of the season, it was very much so up for debate. But I'd like to say at this point, Mahomes has earned the right to say that he is the best quarterback in the National Football League. The thing I didn't expect is how big the gap truly is. Not only is Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback in the entire league, but he is in a league of his own. Josh Allen's talent is incredible, but he's not even close to Mahomes' level at this point. Logan, what do you think about that?
I love how hot we're starting off today, Nolan, and I totally agree with you. I think Patrick Mahomes so far this season has been the costumes that you're wearing so far today, very festive and right for the holidays, and I'm Josh Allen, not really ready for it at all, and we've seen that gap throughout the season, and it's emphasized by what happened in the offseason. The Bills got better, but the Chiefs, they had a few players swapping in and out. Tyreek Hill got traded to the Miami Dolphins, a big-time playmaker, years on end, and this is kind of a rare case where you have both players playing really well on their new situations. Tyreek Hill over 1,000 yards already in Miami, but Patrick Mahomes probably having one of his most efficient seasons as a passer so far this season. The Chiefs just haven't skipped a beat. And Josh Allen, we've seen, it was a hot start for him so far, but as the season's gone along, he's had a big problem with turnovers, 11 interceptions so far on the year. And he struggled so far, especially as that AFC East has gotten a lot better with teams like the Dolphins and Jets and Patriots all taking that step up. So I think that that gap that you mentioned, it has taken a big step up. Mahomes has proven that he is a front runner for this MVP trophy so far this year. And Josh Allen, it was his trophy to win at the start of the year, just hasn't been in recent weeks.
Well, look, I'm going to disagree with you, Logan. Nolan, Chef Collery, I should say, I came down the chimney and found a nice plate of chocolate chip cookies, and the one I accidentally grabbed was that oatmeal raisin one that you left there. This one, I'm not going to say the gap is too far. I will say that Patrick Mahomes is the better quarterback of these two, and it's been seen in the stats. When it comes to passing, when it comes to the team's success on offense, right now the Chiefs are humming on all cylinders. Patrick Mahomes leads Josh Allen in passing yards by about 400 yards. But the thing that separates the two is Josh Allen's ability to also run the ball. He's got almost double the amount of rushing yards as Patrick Mahomes, meaning that offense for Buffalo is a little bit more dynamic. And look, I know that Josh Allen struggles with turnovers from time to time. But the thing is, the Buffalo offense is meant to have turnovers. They let Josh Allen play loose, and sometimes that leads to turnovers. But so far, that hasn't hurt them too much. So I don't think this gap is as big as Nolan and Logan, you guys might think.
I think that's good responses from both of you. Very fair points on all cylinders, as you mentioned. So let's move from the single cookie to the cookie tray. Let's talk about a whole team. Minnesota Vikings, 10-2 to start. They've definitely have, if not the most, and one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. Explosive, super high-powered. All these things come to mind, but their defense, it's shaky, to say the absolute least. They play down to teams in the second half, and as a playoff team, you need to have good second half defense. If you get to a lead, you need to defend it. I'm getting close to pressing the panic button on this Vikings defense, and I think it's the reason they might be looking at an early playoff exit. Justin, what do you think?
Well, I'm thinking that right now for Minnesota, just like how Rudolph leads my sled with his red nose, I think that the Minnesota offense is leading this team, and that means this defense could cause problems. So I agree with you, Nolan. It just hasn't been a great showing for them at points this season. You look at the game against the Cowboys. That's the big one here. They let up 40 points. They lost 40-3. The offense shut down in that one too, but Dak Prescott threw all over that secondary. Then the running backs, Tony Pollard and Zeke, they combined for a good night. And when Minnesota has played balanced offenses, they played the Bills too. That's another playoff team. They let up 30 points. You look at the game they played against the Eagles. It was early in the season. Another balanced offense. And they just never got things going on the defensive side. The Eagles took care of business in that one as well. I know that the Vikings did pull off the upset, as some would say, against the Bills, but so far this defense has been shaky, and really this past week was a great example of that. The Jets are having a quarterback problem right now. Sure, Mike White has had his flashes, but that team is without a quarterback, really, an NFL starting quarterback, and it was a one-possession game. The Jets kept it close, and that's on the defense. And sure, they came up big at the goal line, but I think this defense is the reason that Minnesota is going to exit the playoffs earlier than expected.
I'm going to disagree with you, actually. I think with the Bills and Jets game specifically, like you mentioned, there were some key points like that you missed out, and kind of like the oatmeal raisin thing. It's actually a pretty good cookie. But going back to the Bills game, that was one of 2 times where the Vikings allowed 30 or more points as a team this season. But the key things from that Bills game, that game went into overtime, and the Vikings defense clutched up against one of the best offenses on the defensive side to eventually come away with a victory. That Vikings team, it has playmakers, not one that you'll talk about week in and week out, but they make plays when their number is called. Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson on the secondary side, and Za'Darius Smith, Danielle Hunter, guys in the front 7 that have made plays week after week. So talk about the Bills game from that facet. The Jets game, the offense, you mentioned the problems that they had so far this year. The Vikings still kept them out of the end zone until that second half. It was a bend but don't break style of defense towards the red zone. The Jets only got field goals for a good portion of the game, and then they got desperate towards the end. That's when the touchdowns started to come in. But those 2 teams, the Jets and Bills, both currently in the playoff picture in the AFC, and the Vikings came away with close wins. Pretty much due to how their defense played in the end, especially in that Jets game, getting a red zone interception to close out that game. So the Vikings, they have proven in most of the games they've played so far that they can come up big defensively. Yes, the Cowboys game is a big outlier, but that Cowboys offense has been one of the better ones so far this season. We'll see if they can figure that out come playoff time. But with the way that their offense has been playing, they've proven that they can hang with a lot of these good teams in the playoffs, and I think that defense can hold up when it matters most.
Now, gentlemen, any good baker knows you saved your hottest treats for last, and I am a very good baker. It's time to talk about another team in the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, as both a quarterback and a leader, has been disappointing. The defense, which had very high expectations, has been disappointing. The wide receiver core, even with such low expectations, I still believe has been disappointing. I am ready to say that Green Bay is the worst team in the NFC North. Even after beating Chicago, it's time to say it. The other teams are younger, they're hungrier, there's no vision in Green Bay. They're at the bottom now. What do you guys think?
You know, Nolan, I know you said save your hottest take for last, but kind of like the weather this time of year, I think this might have been the coldest one. I think I totally agree with that take you mentioned. Just the way that this Packers team is constructed, it's built for Aaron Rodgers. And when Aaron Rodgers is successful and firing on all cylinders, the Packers are going to be competitive. But this has not been Aaron Rodgers of old. That Packers roster is not the same from top to bottom. And specifically the receiver core, I mean, once Davante Adams left the room, there was no receiving core. I mean, Christian Watson had a great couple of weeks. He's been finding the end zone the past couple of weeks, but that offense has not looked the same as it was, and we've seen some key injuries on the defensive side. These games have not been close at all for Aaron Rodgers to make those miracle comebacks that we've seen in the past couple of seasons. And we were just praising the Vikings, the start they've had so far this year. They're, without a doubt, the best team in the NFC North. And then you got the Bears and Lions, both teams that are on the rise in this division. The Lions have had some pretty good wins during the Dan Campbell era so far. They haven't won a lot of games, but that roster is going to be built for success down the road. And Justin Fields has looked really strong as well these past couple weeks. I know you can make the argument that the Bears don't have receivers like the Packers, but they made moves for one. They got Chase Claypool from the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can't really say that from a Packers standpoint, didn't really make any moves for that. The Bears and Lions, they're going to be on the rise in the next couple of years, but you just can't say that for the Packers. We don't know what we're going to see from Jordan Love in the upcoming years if Aaron Rodgers does decide to pack it in and leave. He's had those couple of games late in the second half where he's played well, but that's really it. I think this Packers roster could be doomed in the future.
Yeah, well, I know you're the baker here, but sometimes I like to change my last name to Chef Olela instead of Ciavolella, because I am going to cook up a take that's even hotter. I will say that the Green Bay Packers are the worst team in the NFC. And look, record-wise might not show that, but the Green Bay Packers are a mess from top to bottom. It's been awful on offense, despite Aaron Rodgers not actually having that bad of a year. He's 4th in the league in touchdown passes, and he's in the top half of the league in passing yards, and that's with a receiving core that hasn't been good, really, at many points this season. They lead the league with 7 fumbles on the receiving end. But then you go past that. You go to what the problems are. It's the coaching staff. And Matt LaFleur, the head coach of Green Bay, him and the Packers won't be meeting under the mistletoe much longer, because that's going to end this offseason. Maybe even before the season ends, Matt LaFleur is going to be out of there. And what do you have to do then? Restart. A new head coach with a quarterback that's up in the air. You could argue that Jordan Love should be starting for this team right now, but whether you want to say Love or Rodgers, it's going to be a problem in the offseason because of the cap space. The Packers have no direction. There is teams that are worse record-wise and maybe even statistically than the Green Bay Packers this season, but the Packers have no direction going forward. Aaron Rodgers is a $36 million cap hit next year. Even if he were to retire, it's $40 million in a cap hit, and then in 2024, they'll end up opening their cap. At the end of the day, the Packers have nothing going for them right now. I would say they're the worst team in the NFC.
Well, I'm glad that you guys can help me keep the Takery so hot. It's time to close up shop here at the Takery for the holiday season. For Logan Bourandas, Justin Ciavolella, and the entire crew here at Penn State Sports Night, I'm Nolan Collery. Have yourself a happy holiday season, and always remember that the best way to stay warm is with a hot take.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind the scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.